Fortnite Season 4 is here, so I'm going to rank every single item from early game only ones all the way up to the most broken. So first, let's start off with all the weapons that were already in the previous season. All the heals will be in their obvious slot, and the Sentinel Pump is obviously still going to be the meta. It is by far still the strongest shotgun, but we'll come back to the new ones later. The Fury Assault Rifle is still really good for W keying, so it's into the strong. And the DMR is also probably going to be the meta for high level FNCS, but it's not going to be the meta for most tournaments, so I'm just going to put it in strong. The Veiled Precision SMG is the only weapon that has a scope, but also is hit scan, so may be used for some Storm Surge. Outside of that, it's not that amazing, but I'm still going to put it in for strong because I do see some teams still taking it. Also, honorable mention to the weapons that are not in competitive. Shockwaves, the Shockwave Launcher, which is insanely annoying. I had one of the longest fights earlier. Both of us using 18 rockets over and over again, or 16, however many it was. Very boring fight. Thank God that's not in competitive. The Swarm Strike, which I must say is the most broken rocket launcher explosive ever. Why does this one shot? Why does this do over 200 damage? I don't know. I've died to this quite a lot so far. The Flare Gun, which currently is in competitive, but I don't think it should be. I think it'll be removed. And then also the Forecast Boon, which again is also not in competitive. So let's start things off with the first new rifle, and that is the OXR rifle. Now, this is the only rifle that actually has a 1.75 times headshot multiplier, whilst every other one has a 1.5 times. It has a slightly slower fire rate, similar to the Spire rifle. Actually, it's just very similar to the Spire rifle from the previous season, without the massive clip size. And generally, we saw most people taking the Spire rifle anyway, so I definitely think this is going to be straight into the meta. The Hammer Assault rifle is also back, but I don't really think it's that much better than the Fury Assault rifle, but this is probably personal preference. Both of these are in strong, whereas the OXR is in the meta, which I think is just the best rifle, as I said. Moving on to the shotguns, I'd already mentioned that the Sentinel Pump is by far the best. However, the Sweeper Shotgun is the new tactical style shotgun, and the crosshair is very strange. It's very horizontal, and it does actually do some good damage. I've hit some bangs with this so far. It also appears to have a little bit of range on it, unlike a lot of the tactical shotguns. However, it's quite frankly just nowhere near as good as the Sentinel Pump shotgun, so I'm going to put it into balanced. Then we have the Wrecker Revolver, and this is an extremely strange pistol because it's almost weird to call it a pistol since it uses shotgun ammo. Now, in close range, when you're firing it from the hip fire, it has a wide spread, and even at relatively medium ranges, you can actually hit some pretty good shots with this. But when you ADS, it tightens up the scope, and then you're able to hit good shots from that medium range as well. Now, in the gold rarity, the max body shot damage is 90, and the max headshot damage is 160. So you can actually just use this like a tactical shotgun. But because it doesn't count as a shotgun, you can actually double pump with this. This is actually insanely good in that close and medium ranges, so this is undoubtedly going into the meta. The Stinger SMG has also been unvaulted, and it's very good for W keying. If you've played a lot of Reload and you've used this a lot, it does a lot of damage. However, it really lacks in the mid to long range where the OXR rifle absolutely flourishes. So as good as it is, and the fact that it's extremely viable, I'm not going to put it into the meta. It's going into strong. And then the Lead Splitter 3000 is a very strange weapon. Now, I'm not really sure what to even think about this weapon. I've tried it a few times, and I've just not been able to hit like massive damage like you would with a minigun. I've not really able to feel the power of it like I would with other miniguns before. Now, maybe I'm just awful. There's a high likelihood that is true, but I've not felt that it was really overpowered or a must carry. In solos, it seems definitely strong, so I'm going to put it into strong. However, in team modes, this definitely could be the meta or broken AF. I've just not really had as much chance to use it yet. Just my initial interpretation is that it doesn't feel that strong, though. Now, next up is the Bug Blaster. Now, this is a very strange item that you can hold a charge and it will actually explode. The biggest problem with this is that it has a radius that damages you through builds. It also has a very high structure damage, so if you're boxed up, you can basically just get spammed by this, and it has like 30 or 40 uses in the actual clip itself, so you could just really get griefed by good players if they're carrying this. This is the first item that's going into the broken AF, and it's not necessarily due to the damage specifically, but more just due to the spammability of it. All right, let's move on to the mobility items, and now there is a new version of the launch pad. This is a throwable item, but it is a purple variation rather than the blue. It goes way higher into the sky, so this is now actually worth carrying. This is particularly true if you combine it with the Flowberry Fizz, as this sends you 250 meters into the sky, which for those mid-game rotates when you're deep in Storm, which has been a huge part of the meta, this is going to be incredibly good. So this is definitely a meta item. Then the Crash Pad Juniors have also been unvaulted. This is probably the best mobility item outside of the medallions, which we'll come to later. And again, very similarly, when you combine it with the Flowberry Fizz, the rotates you can do with this are insane, in particular in the end game. Extremely balanced, and in my opinion, one of the best items ever added to Fortnite, straight into the meta. And talking of Flowberry Fizz, it has been unvaulted and added back to the game. This is an incredible team heal, but of course it is also used for so many different mobility options. If you use it with the crash pads, if you use it with the launch pad, as we've already mentioned. But as a team heal itself, it's insanely good. So for the trio events and then later duo events, it's a must carry, straight into the meta. The exact same thing can be said with the chug splashes. Team heals, very quick, straight into the meta. And then there's also two different types of slurp juices. The purple slurp juice heals 90 HP, whereas the gold one does 240 damage. We all know these are incredible, straight into the meta. Now let's move on to the exotics. Now you get these by going to the bunkers once you hit the A rank, and there'll be one that spawns in each bunker, and it is completely random. The first is the Double Trouble. Now, this is basically just a gold pump, but you get two of them and there is no pump delay. So if you're in box, you can just switch back and forth between two gold pumps. And if you don't want to do that and you want to give this to another player, you can just drop one of them and then both of you can have gold pumps. Massive news for the unemployed. This can also do 200. It can 200. There's two of them. It's broken AF. Next up is the Marksman Wrecker Revolver. Now this thing is insane. Remember that I said the gold one of these did 160 headshot damage? This does 185 and from the hipfire has a faster fire rate. Honestly, I think this gun is the most broken shotgun ever added to Fortnite. Maybe not because it can't 200 pump and some ones used to previously. This thing is just insanely broken. You just run in their face and just shoot near the head and you're going to get kills, no problem. It's also automatic and fires insanely quick. And you can ADS with it. Broken AF, undoubtedly. Next one is the Eradicator OXR rifle. Now, after you hit a player, the first damage does 35. However, every successful hit increases the damage by 5, up to a cap of 55, I think. So if you hit 3 shots in a row, that's 35, 40, 45, which is 120 damage. This weapon by itself is already the best assault rifle, so giving it this extra buff makes it insanely busted. It's in broken AF. You can also get the exotic Slapberry Fizz, which is a Flowberry Fizz with 300 uses, and it gives you the slap effect. Now, I've just put this into the meta because it is ultimately still just a Flowberry Fizz. However, the fact that in trios you essentially get 900 heals in one inventory slot is insanely broken, so maybe I could put that up. Then there's also an exotic Shockwave Launcher, but this doesn't actually appear to be in the game yet, and it's also not in comp if it is. All right, let's move on to the medallions, and the first up is the Carapace Medallion, which can be found at Ranger's Ruin by defeating the Queen there. Now, this passively recharges your shield infinitely up to 50, which by itself is insanely strong. However, it has been nerfed a little bit as it does this much slower now than in previous seasons. When you get an elimination, it grants you 50 health immediately. However, I'm also not sure how this stacks with the current siphon that's in tournaments. I don't know if it doubles up or not. Not sure on that yet. Infinite heals that doesn't require an inventory slot. Obviously, this is broken AF. Next is the Surge Medallion, which can be found at the Hive. Now, this increases your movement speed, but it also, probably more importantly, gives you a boost when you're sliding. You can essentially just chain these boosts around the map, and it takes 0 stamina. And the angle switch-ups you can do with this are insane. If you're in a box, you can just hold left or right and then click crouch, and you'll fire yourself into that direction, avoiding any pump damage that these players may get. So players who have good movement already are going to be almost unhittable in a box. Sliding into a structure also does 25 structure damage, so if a player edits and then resets, their wall will be under this HP, so you can literally just sprint and slide through their wall. Fighting against someone who has this is incredibly annoying because they can just run away and there's no chance you're going to be able to catch up to them. Unsurprisingly, broken AF. And the final medallion is the Spring Leg Medallion, which is found at Demon's Debris. Now, this medallion allows you to jump slightly higher, and it gives you a double jump which cancels fall damage. Important to note, if you don't double jump, it does not cancel the fall damage, so you must double jump. Plus, this double jump uses stamina, so if you try to double jump when you have no stamina, you will die to fall damage. You can do some really cool plays in fights like this, plus you have an insane amount of rotation ability, so yes, this also, in my eyes, is broken AF. What a surprise! All 3 medallions are broken AF. Who would have thought? Now, there are actually 3 more mythics that you can get, and these come from the pod drops once you get S+ rank, which is incredibly difficult to get. Now, from this, you'll either get the enhanced Havoc shotgun, the overclocked pulse rifle, or the enhanced assault rifle. And in trios, you actually get 3 from what I've seen so far, which is unbelievably broken. Unsurprisingly, all 3 of these are in broken AF because they're some of the strongest weapons Fortnite's ever seen. And finally, let's move on to the boons. The first boon is the agile aiming boon, and when you're aiming down your sights, your recoil and spread will be reduced and you maintain more of your movement speed. Pretty good into balanced. The extended magazine boon increases your clip size for all of your weapons, also pretty balanced. And then finally, there is the level up super soldier boons. Now, whilst your OXR rank is leveling up, you're going to get these drops that come down. They're going to guarantee drop one of these boons. Depending on which rank you've got will depend on what abilities you get from it. Now, you can see the S+ rank is probably overpowered. However, most people are never really going to get to this rank at all. So I'm just going to put this into strong. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot. Click here to subscribe. Peace.